Sorry you were saved, brother?
What's that?
Have you ever been sorry you were saved?
No.
The Lord works on you. I want you to come up here.
Yeah, I am.
And anyway, he's dear to me like a brother. He is. Go ahead, brother.
Okay, first of all, I'd like to just thank this class. I know it's because of your prayers I'm standing here, probably alive and speaking. There's in 2011 was kind of a rough year for me and Tony. My wife, she's not here. She's on there. She's in church, saving me a seat. So, but as I knew, me and her, we've been through a lot. First of all, I knew the Lord was speaking to me, and all the time. I know He's talking to me all the time, because when when He saved me, I knew He was going to use me somewhere, and I was making a lot of bad choices. Wasn't serving Him. Serve Him for a while, leave, serve Him. Jim knows. Jim knows that, and my family knows that. But when I finally got myself on track, I thought I was doing what the Lord wanted me to do, and then stuff started happening. Because I would witness to people, but I would choose them. I would pick and choose. Maybe I wasn't asking the Lord to put somebody in my path every day. I didn't care where I was or who it was. It kind of made me feel like, am I ashamed to tell people about Jesus? Because I was picking and choosing people. And I said, nah, but I was listening. I was listening to the Holy Spirit. He was telling me that. But there was a thing, the things that happened in my life was Tony was at a job like for 18 years. All of a sudden, in the last couple of years, life became miserable for her also. Because I know what God works on both of us. Because she completes me, I complete her, I guess. But anyhow, I seen God reaching out in different ways, but I wasn't getting the message. I knew that. I knew that deep in my heart. But when she lost her job after 18 years, that was a wake-up call. And then in February, almost a year ago to this, almost a year ago, it was during Christmas, I woke up, something woke me up, I couldn't speak, I was paralyzed, half my body was paralyzed, I couldn't speak. I couldn't figure it out, I kept wondering, God, what are you trying to tell me? And so I woke up, Tony, we ended up in the hospital. They found a hole in my heart, in the back of my heart. And the only way they could see it is by going down your throat, looking at behind your heart. But it's right in the middle of your heart. Anyway, I had this hole in my heart. And they gave me some medication, sent me home, and eventually I got my speech back. And but during all that time, I couldn't speak or anything. Tony was falling apart, of course, everybody around me. But I knew it was God, that everything was going to be all right. I just kept pointing up, and I told him, everything's going to be all right. I knew that. I trusted in that. And then eventually, I kind of the doctors couldn't understand this either, but I got my speech back, my limbs, I could move and everything. I was normal. Before I left the hospital, physical therapist, everybody tested me. They even sent me to a speech therapist. And I talked her head off, witnessing to her. There was a woman. But she needed it. See, God put her right there in my path. And she needed it. In fact, about a week later, she wrote me a letter. She said, now she knows where God was leading. And I sat there and talked to her and told her my life story real fast, what happened to me. Because that's what they ask you, why are you here? Because she's a speech therapist. She wants you to talk. She don't want to talk. But anyway, and then a couple of days later, it was a New Year's Eve. A few days later, it happened again. This time, I couldn't even move. From my neck down, I couldn't move. I couldn't get out of bed. So I just prayed and said, well, God, But I was slurring. I was slurring then. I got up out of bed. I forced myself, and I got up, and I ended up at the hospital again. They said, well, we know there's a hole back there. We have to patch it. On the 18th, I went up there to the hospital and down south. They patched that. And ever since then, I've been all right. Everything came back. I'm talking to you. I'm standing and walking.
Amen.
But anyway, I knew it was you guys' prayers. And then the thing is, at that time, Tony was going to school because she lost her job. She decided to go to San Joaquin Valley College. And the good news is she graduated, top of her class. She's an honor student. she got what do you call it? Not valedictorian, the second ones, whatever. She got to make a speech Friday. She graduated Friday. It was her largest class in that school. It was 150 people graduated, and it was huge. A lot of people there, and she got up there crying and stuff. But first thing that came out of her mouth, she thanked the Lord. You know, I like to thank. She did that Tim Tebow thing. You know, I like to thank the Lord, my Lord and Savior Jesus Christ. I wouldn't have done it without Him. And she thanked her family, of course, me and everybody else, and she thanked our teachers. But when she said that, it was unbelievable. She first of all, when she thanked the Lord, the whole place stood up and cheered. Unbelievable. And she thought it wasn't going to go over well, but it did. I guess Tim Tebow, that football player, saying it, everybody. I mean, they cheered. Everybody cheered and clapped. And anyway, she made her speech. She's working now. She's got a full-time job at Gym Care, and the Lord blessed her. So it changed her all that. But the good thing about it, she even said, God humbled me. God humbled me. She was chasing money. You know, I'm not a money chaser. She was making twice as much money I was making anyway. But anyway, the thing is that I know I couldn't have done it without this class and Brother Jim, especially Bill and Joanne. I remember Bill, when all the things was happening, he offered to help me financially because he knew we were in bad shape. And I told him, you know what, I'm just going to trust in God. And I did, but he was one of the people. There was another person, Tony's brother, offered to help us, and I told him, no, I'm going to trust in God, because that's what He's there for. You know, like I said, you know, Joanne completes him. You know. Yeah. Again, I just want to thank you for all your prayers, and you're always in my prayer. Brother Jim is. And then I know that he and his family, and I get to see his daughter almost every day. She's a blessing to see. I know I'm busy at the time she comes by, but I get to say hi. I get to see her smiling face, and I'm praying for her that she can, you know. I know she's a blessing to Jim, and then that God's going to use her. She just stays on course, and that's what it is. Stay on course, and God will get your attention. Tell me that, and, you know, because I knew He was going to use me. But now, you know, I can go to work every day. I'm not ashamed to talk to anybody about it, whether they listen or not. I plant that seed, and I just move on. But I know and God has plans for me and my wife, you know. So I'm waiting. I ask Him every day to use me, and that should be all of our prayers. That if we're born again Christians, we belong to Christ. He'll use you, because He has me. And I thank Brother Jim again for this class, for your prayers. I love you all. Even the new people, I don't even know yet, but I know it's. But God has a plan for you. Just hang in there. Thank you, Brother Jim. I love you, brother.
I love you.
Folks, this guy here
I know
is
this.
responsible for a lot of people that are in church today.
Yeah. The Lord does it. I tell you, use me. Thank you, brother.
I cannot tell you how much I love that man and his family.
Thank you, brother. Thanks again.
You get to go to Discover the Word with Dr. Jim and watch some of the God's Eternal Purpose classes. You will see Brother Hernando and Levi 10, 11, 12 years ago in those classes. And I wish I had them 30 years ago. They were in my classes. And they mean a lot to me. Hear his testimony and everything. Brother Allen's wife was saved. Brother Allen that comes in here, he's the pharmacist out at Cal State. Can you imagine God cutting these people out of Cal State? And among all of these ungodly buzzards that are out there, even the doctors and the teachers and everything else, but they're like the good in all of that area, and God uses them. And sometimes, you know, if you don't go the right way, God will lambast you. I can guarantee you, God will lambast you. If you don't heed Him, He will put a brick wall in your way, and you have to find the right way around it. And so remember what He said. That's experience, and me too. That's experience. We're in Matthew, the 12th chapter, Matthew chapter 12. How many of you were in my class when I had a stroke while I was teaching? Brother David was. Brother Bill was there. He came up to me afterwards. I didn't hardly know what I was doing. He said, Jim, this is the first class I could ever stay with you. You know, but I was
6
in
months.
slow motion, boy.
Well, you know, when you first come here, your mind, he says something, so your mind starts devouring what he says. Then you got to run back and try to catch up to where he's at. Because you're trying to think, I didn't realize that. And I start thinking about it, then I got to run back and catch up with him.
Well, I was going really slow that day, I guess. I haven't listened to it. I almost quit preaching. I'm going to tell you something, when you're up here teaching and you have a stroke, that's really spooky. You know, and I was, it embarrassed me a lot, but I didn't know what I was doing. I hung in there, didn't I? I stayed up here. I didn't give up. But God will use you one way or another. Matthew, the 12th chapter. This is quite, Matthew 12 and 13, I've been covering one chapter per week. We can't do that right now. This is gigantic. These are gigantic chapters. And there's a lot of material in them. Matthew 12 and verse 1. I'm trying to catch up here. They're so emotional. Those people, I love those people. There were about 200 in that family that were saved in my ministry at that time. I mean, they were a lot. Anna and Fernando and their family, we had 38 people went forward at one time in this church. The whole balcony was just lined up with people and their families. We've seen this over the years. God will use you if you allow Him to do that. You're a missionary or you're a mission field wherever you are. I'm going to guarantee you that. You're either a missionary or a mission field. Somebody's going to work you over with ungodliness and error, or you're going to be a good factor in their lives. At the time that Jesus went on the Sabbath, the word Sabbath means completion, by the way, Sabbaton. It means seven. It means a complete week, a complete. The Bible talks about a week of Sabbaths. That's 7 Sabbaths. Okay, 7 times 7 is what? 49. All right, mathematician in bunch. See. At the time Jesus went on the Sabbath during in the grain fields. Now I think in King James, what does it say there, Norris, in King James? In the grain fields. All right. And his disciples became hungry. They kept on being hungry, and they kept on picking the heads of grain and eating them. All right. What they would do, they were out in the wheat fields, and they would pick off the grains of the head, and they rub them in their hands like this, and they were eating it as they were going through the field because they were hungry. All right. Now remember that a Pharisee, you couldn't even walk on the grass on Saturday because you might accidentally sow grass seed. These people they made more laws than God did. Number 2, it says, but when the Pharisees saw it, they said to him, behold, your disciples do what is unlawful to do on the Sabbath. All right? Your disciples, your church members. And he said to them, Jesus is saying, have you not read what David did when he became hungry, and he and his companions? How he entered into the house of God, into the tabernacle back then, and they ate the showbread. The showbread. Now the priests were only supposed to eat the showbread, remember, which was not lawful for anyone to eat, nor those who were with him, but for the priests alone. Or have you not read in the law that on the Sabbath the priest enter the temple and break the Sabbath? And are they how are the priests breaking the Sabbath on the Sabbath? How do they enter in and break the Sabbath? What are they doing? They're working. They're offering sacrifices. They're working on the Sabbath. They're working. The priests are working. Okay? They're working on the Sabbath. Now, is it unlawful for everybody else to work, but the priests not? Okay? That's what he's saying here. He's trying to make them think. All right? But I say to you that something greater, that someone greater than the temple is here, than the temple or the tabernacle. Verse number 7. Matthew 12th chapter and verse number 7. But if you had known what this means, I desire compassion and not sacrifice, you would have not condemned the innocent. All right? I require what? I desire what? True worship and not sacrifice. If you go back to Hosea 6 and 6 and Isaiah 44, 6 through 8. Let's go back to Isaiah 44, 6 through 8. Go back through there. Isaiah 44, 6 through 8. Let's read one more verse also. For the Son of Man is Lord of the Sabbath. He is Jehovah of Sabaoth. Ha ha. He is Jehovah of Sabaoth. He is the Jehovah of the Sabbath. Now hold your place right there and go back in Isaiah 44. Dr. John, are you over there in Isaiah 44?
Yes, thus says the Lord, the King of Israel, and his Redeemer, the Lord of hosts.
Well, what do you know about that? The Jehovah Sabaoth. That's who that is, Jehovah Sabaoth. That's the one. That's the one that's speaking to these Pharisees right now, okay? Go ahead, brother, Dr. John.
It says, I am the first, I am the last. Besides me there is no God. And who can proclaim
Now,
as I
hold on,
do?
right? Just hold on right
I'm
there.
too excited.
Yeah. Who is talking to these people? They know exactly what he's saying, don't they? Now he's going back, he's quoting the Old Testament, and he's telling them that, and I'm going to tell you what, these Pharisees are infuriated because he's telling them he's Jehovah Sabaoth. He's the Lord of armies. This is who he is. Okay, go ahead, brother.
And who can proclaim as I do? Then let him declare it and set it in order for me. Since I appointed the ancient people and the things that are coming and shall come, let them show these to them. Do not fear, nor be afraid. Have I not told you from that time and declare it? You are my witnesses. Is there a God besides me? Indeed, there is no other rock. I know not one.
Boy, what did he just tell these people? They probably got very mad because he's telling them that I am the Jehovah. I am the one that designed the Sabbath. I am the Lord of the Sabbath. Now, Revelation 1 and 8. Go to Revelation 1 and 8. Actually, 1, 7 and 8. Go to Revelation 1, 7 and 8. I've been really excited about this lesson all week. You can tell that, can't you? This is really a good lesson. You know, one old preacher told me one time, he said, if you can't think of anything else to preach about, just tell them about Jesus. All right? I hope that every class that I teach, I honor and glorify my Savior. That's what I try to do. And tell you how to be saved, too. All right. Revelation 1, 7 and 8. Brother Rex, are you over there? Did you find that one?
Behold, he is coming with the clouds, and every eye will see him. Even those who pierced him, and all the tribes of the earth will mourn over him.
Okay, hold on right there. Read that first part of that real loud again. I want everybody to get that.
Behold, he is coming with the clouds.
He's coming with the clouds. Now, when Jesus left with his disciples on the Mount of Olives, he went up in the clouds, and the Lord and the angels told that church right there, he said, just hold on. One of these days, he's going to come back just like he left. He went up into the clouds. He was lifted up into the clouds. He went into heaven. All right? And now he's coming back. Right here, he's coming back. And let's see what the context of it is. All right, Brother X, go on. Real loud.
Even those who pierced him, and all the
Even those who pierced him. Who pierced Jesus?
Jews.
The Jews called for it. The Romans said, our hands are innocent in this man's blood. And they said, what? Let his blood be upon us and our children. And has it?
Yes.
Absolutely. Is it still upon on them and blood upon them and their children? Absolutely. Why have they been through so much trouble in the world? Because of their ungodly deeds. That's why. Their ungodly deeds. That's why they're called. Their mouth calls for blows, as the Bible said. That's why they've had so much trouble. Go ahead, Brother Rex.
no man, and pierced him. And all the tribes of the earth will mourn over him. So it is to be. Amen.
All right, go on a little further.
I am the Alpha and the Omega.
Here's the same one. Now, here that goes right back to the book of Isaiah. See, he's the Alpha and the Omega, the Aleph and the Tau, by the way. Aleph and Tau. The Aleph and Tau Here we have Aleph, and we have Tau. That's the first and the last letter. It's backwards. Goes to that one, okay? He's the Aleph and the Tau. In Hebrew, it will be Aleph and Tau. And in Greek, it's the Alpha and the Omega. All right? The Alpha and the Omega are Omega like that, either way. The first and the last, the beginning and the end. He is the first of the creation of God. He is the head of the creation of God, isn't he? He was over all the creation of God. We find out that Jesus Christ created everything. Back in the book of Isaiah, it says that he did. All right? And go on a little further, brother. I am Alpha and I am Omega.
Says the Lord God, who is and who was.
Who said the Lord God? Jehovah Elohim. This is who it is. This is Jesus
Who is
speaking.
and who was and who is to come, the Almighty.
All right, the Almighty. Now, he just told them there in Matthew the 12th chapter, and verse number 7, or verse number 8, he said, for the Son of Man is Jehovah Sabaoth, the Lord of all the Sabbaths. They knew what he's talking about. It's Sabbaton in Greek, it's Sabaoth in Hebrew, and it's Jehovah, and they refer to Jehovah Sabaoth and Adonai Sabaoth. Even today, the Jews do. Have they accepted him as their Messiah? Is their nation founded upon Jesus today? I'll tell you, one of these days it'll be founded upon Jesus, but he's going to have to warp them real good. He's going to have to whoop them first, and he's going to use the nations to whoop them. That's the way it is. God uses many, many things to turn us around. Many, many things. John, the first chapter. Go to John, the first chapter. Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John. John is not one of the synoptics, is he? John is kind of an oddball. He puts things all out of order, but he does it for a specific reason. He wants to prove to us the Gospel of John is written for one reason, that Jehovah is Jesus. That's the whole purpose of the Gospel. You know that the Muslims won't accept the book of John. They won't accept 1st, 2nd, and 3rd John. They won't accept the book of Colossians. They won't accept the book of Ephesians. They won't accept the book of Revelation, because they said those books, the writers in the New Testament, they thought that Jesus was Jehovah. And they can't work that. We don't believe that. So we're not going to accept that. Wouldn't the Jehovah's Witnesses, remember in Isaiah the 44th chapter a while ago, where we were a while ago? Ye are my witnesses. That's the term that Charles Taze Russell or Judge Rutherford gave to them. That was a new penny name. But they're not. What do the Jehovah's Witnesses do, Brother Bill? They say that Jesus is just an angel. And the Jews say that Jesus was a false Messiah. That he was a no good. And they put him to death because he was no good. He was a false Messiah. Well, he told them exactly who he was, didn't he? He said, I am Jehovah Sabaoth. And they murdered him. And today, they still have the same opinion of him. They haven't changed their mind yet. There's a few Jews that are saved.
They
Even
changed
far
their mind.
between.
1 second after they're dead, they change their mind.
What?
1 second after
Well,
they
yeah,
die,
1
they
second
change
after
their
they're
mind.
dead, they know who Jesus is. All right, John, the 1st chapter now. WWII, the Gospel according to John. And John says, behold your God. All right? And verse number 2, he was in the beginning with God. He was an inseparable part of the Godhead in the beginning. That's just talking about Jesus. Verse number 3, all things came into being through him, and apart from him, nothing came into being that has come into being. In him was life, and the life was the light of men, and the light shines in darkness, and the darkness comprehends it not. Isaiah 44, 6 through 8, exactly where we were a while ago. And there came a man sent from God whose name was John. And he came to bear witness that he might bear witness of the light, that all men might believe through him. And he was the light, but he came that he might bear witness of the light. There was the true light which cometh into the world and enlightens every man. He was in the world, and the world was made through him, and the world did not. What it means that the world would not know him. Still, the world would not know him. And he came to his own. To his own. Who were his own? Who did he send the first church delegation to? The 12 apostles. The first to give place in the church was what? The apostles. Where were the apostles when they were ordained and they were sent out, what we call the limited commission? Where did they go to? He said, don't go to anybody else but what?
The Jews.
To the lost sheep of the house of Israel. Turn this thing down just a tiny bit. They were go to the lost sheep of the house of Israel, and he came to his own, and what happened? His own did not receive him. They would not receive him. All right? But as many as received him, to him he gave the right to become children of God. Children, born sons of God. Born sons. Live births of God. Even to those who believe in his name. Who are born not of blood, nor of the will of the flesh. Look at that. We are all born of our mothers and fathers, don't we? You can't pick who your mother and father is. Did you know that? You just flop out here, and that's the way you did. They may have been scoundrels. Maybe you had a good father, a good mother. Maybe you had a good mother and a bad father. Who knows? Sometimes one of them's got to take place. One of them's got to take priority over the other. One, somebody's got to protect the family, you know. Somehow. But you didn't choose it, did you? What if you don't have anybody and you're just left out there as an orphan in the world? There are those too, aren't there? Who were born not of blood, nor of the will of the flesh, nor of the will of man, but of God. John 1:14 says, and the word, kahologos sarx agenitos. You know that, Brother David. How is that? Kahologos sarx agenitos. And the word, the Jehovah flesh, he became. And dwelt among us, and we beheld his glory. Glory as the only begotten from the Father, full of grace and full of truth. Back in Matthew the 12th chapter. Matthew the 12th chapter. Have you ever asked anybody, do you know the Lord? Have you ever asked anybody, do you know the Lord? What do they say? What do they say, Brother Bill?
I got my own religion.
Huh? I got my own religion. I go to church. I've been there at that church. I go over to that church. I do this. I do that. I go to church once a year. Whatever. That's not what you ask them. Do you know the Lord?
Yeah.
I remember one time this Baptist preacher was going on a revival. He went into this town. He was going door to door every day. He would stay up. He'd study his sermons in the morning. He'd get out there and then he'd start going knocking door to door. And he went and he happened to go to a deacon's house. And he knocked on the door. And a woman came to the door and this preacher said, do you know the Lord? And she said, my husband's a deacon in the church. He said, do you know the Lord? I'm a Sunday school teacher. And he said to her, do you know the Lord? And she started bawling. Because she didn't know the Lord. She didn't know the Lord. And she was saved right there. She became saved right there. Brother Hernando was telling me, Brother Allen's wife, we've been praying for Alan's wife for quite a while. Alan wanted to come and join the church here. So Alan went there and he had his wife there and everything else. And so Alan was going to go forward and join the church. And Hernando was going to go up there with him and everything. And Alan's wife wasn't saved. So Alan gets up and he starts to go forward. And his wife starts going too. And he says, where are you going? I'm going to go join the church. I don't know. Something's wrong. Something's wrong here. Something's wrong. I need to go up too. Something's wrong. God was working on her heart. You ask somebody, do you know the Lord? And they start telling you all about where they go and all this kind of stuff. Then you know basically they don't know the Lord, do they? You know the Lord? Brother Bill, do you know the Lord? Yeah. All right. I'll tell you what, you didn't know you were saved for a long time, did you?
No, I don't know that.
But you do today.
I know today.
Yeah, but you know the time when you asked the Lord to forgive you and call upon Him and ask Him to save your soul. You know that, and you know it worked now, don't you? All right? Each and every one of you, we need to understand that. We need to understand that there needs to be a time in our life when we came to the Lord and say, Lord, forgive me of my sins and save my soul. That's really important. Because if you don't have that, you're on the way to hell. And hell's a long time, just like heaven's a long time too. It's a long time. Every one of these Jews, did they know the Lord? Do you think they knew who Jesus was? Did they know who Jesus was? Did they know where he was supposed to be born? Well, Herod asked them. Herod the Great, you know, that low-down scoundrel. We've been talking about him lately. He knew when the Magi came looking for him, for Jesus, he asked the scribes and the Pharisees and the priests, where's the Messiah supposed to be born? Where's the king supposed to be born? And they said, Bethlehem. Boy, it's Bethlehem. Go over there and find him and then tell me where he is and I'll go worship him too. He wanted to murder him. Did he know where he was? Yeah, he knew he was in Bethlehem. He knew he was in Bethlehem, and after they didn't come back, you know, the Magi went another way and they didn't come back, then what did Herod do? Did he go over there looking for him to worship him? Did he know who he was? Did he know who he was? Yeah. But the angel of the Lord had warned Joseph and said, go down to Egypt, take my son down to Egypt. And so Herod demands that every child, every son that has been born for the last 2 years is going to be executed. This is what we call the destruction of the innocents, or the impaling of the innocents in Bethlehem. About 200 to 250 babies were murdered by Herod. Did he know who the Messiah was? Yeah. How about him? Did he know Jesus? How about all the Pharisees? How about Ananias? You know, they took Jesus to Ananias' house that night. Did Ananias know all about all of this stuff? Ananias had been handpicked by Herod. When Herod took place, he killed the high priest. He murdered them, the ones that were in place. He murdered the high priest, and he married this Jewish woman, and he took her brother and put him as high priest. Guess who those people were? He killed all the Sanhedrin court, murdered every one of them. He took all of their property, and he appointed his own Sanhedrin court, his own hand-picked bunch of scoundrels. Boy, that was a real nice political situation, wasn't it? That Jesus came into the world with. That's where he comes. And they knew who Jesus was, but they didn't want to know him. They didn't want to know him. They didn't want to know him. They would not know him. Brother Bill.
That's the same thing Henry VIII did. He kicked the church out and
When he wanted to get married.
people in there.
When he wanted to get married to little Miss Anne Boleyn, and he wanted a divorce from Catherine of Aragon, he said the Pope wouldn't give it to him. Of course, the Pope's nothing but a scoundrel anyway. But the Pope used to make those kings grovel at his feet. They would come to the Pope's palace, and he'd make them stand outside in the snow, kneeling on their knees until he decided, these are kings now. He humbled the kings. They would come and ask him if it was permitted for him to marry so-and-so girl. The Catholic Church would do the same thing in the world today if they could. They still don't know Jesus either, by the way. They don't want to know him. They want to know Mary. They want to know the Holy Papa. They want to know anything else. They want to know all the statues, but they don't want to know Jesus. Jesus is the only thing that will get you to heaven. That's it. That's the only one that's going to get you to heaven. Jesus. And departing from there, he went into their synagogues, not his. These were his synagogues. I want to tell you, every one of these houses of God, this church here that we have here is not our church. This is Jesus' church. He owns this church. We play around and fool around. Sometimes we act like we own it, but it's his church, not ours. He went into their synagogues. All over. Where is he now? Where is Jesus? Running around Galilee. How many cities are around Galilee? This is a test. How many cities were around the Sea of Galilee? 9 cities. Thank you, Brother Roger. You got A+ today.
Each one had 15,000.
And each one of them had 15,000 or more. Thank you, Dr. John. We got 2 A+ in the class today. Each one of them had 15,000 or more people in each one of those cities. And he's going, every one of these cities had a synagogue. A synagogue. What is the Hebrew word for synagogue? Mill. All right. All right. That's a place of gathering together. That's the church house. It's not the ecclesia. The ecclesia is the people. All right. All right. Not the kahal. It's our moed and synagogue. Okay. Departing, he went into their synagogues, and let's see what kind happens in their church houses. Okay. Here is the Lord of Sabaoth walking into these church houses that are supposed to be glorifying Him. Every altar up there was supposed to glorify Him. Okay. Verse number 10. And behold, there was a man with a dried out hand. And they questioned him, saying, here they see, they knew what Jesus was going to do in their synagogue. Every person that was healed, they looked upon every person that had an ailment or sickness or blind or leprosy, they looked upon them as if God had cursed them. Okay? Now, here they come in here, and here comes a guy that has an ailment into the synagogue, and they said, oh, watch this blowhard over there. Watch this Jesus. Watch what he's going to do now. And there kept on being a man with a withered hand, and they questioned him, saying, is it lawful to heal on the Sabbath? They looked upon Jesus as just a good doctor, as some miracle healer. All right? Not the Messiah. In order that they might accuse him. Now, the messianic credentials is that he would heal the blind. That's number one. No one ever was healed of the blind. He healed a lot of blind people. He healed deaf people. He healed people that were demon-possessed. He healed people who could not speak. He raised the dead. He healed leprosy, which was an act of God only. All right? In order that they might accuse him. Were they accepting him? Remember it said a while ago in John the 1st chapter, but they would not accept him. They didn't want to know him. They knew him, but they didn't want to know him. And he said to them, what man shall there be among you who shall have one sheep? Now he's quoting the law to them now. The law made exceptions to the rule on the Sabbath. If you had a sheep that fell into a ditch and was drowning out in a ditch and was suffering in a ditch, you could go out there and take the sheep out. And the sheep is what we call a dumb animal, okay? I'm going to tell you something about those dumb animals. If you want to come out and see sheep, you can come out right to my farm out there. There's sheep all over the place right now. And those sheep out there are the most playful little dumb creatures you've ever seen. They act just like humans. God uses sheep to describe human nature. We're village idiots is what we are, actually. Who have one sheep and it falls into a pit on the Sabbath, will not take hold of it and lift it out. This is made provisions in the law of Moses. Of how much more value than a man than a sheep. So then, it is lawful to do good on the Sabbath. It's lawful to do good on the Sabbath. You're not supposed to be running around with a sad face and fasting and not drinking or any of these things. That's what all the Jews did on the Sabbath. You know, they would fast, they would do all these things. Verse number 13. This is very important. Highlight this. And he said to the man, stretch out your hand. And he stretched out, and it was restored to him normal like the other. But the Pharisees, but, I want you to understand, these miracles were done for one reason. They weren't done to heal the sick. They weren't done to heal the sick. Okay? They were not done to get people to believe. Miracles were not performed to make believers out of people. Why were the miracles performed? For one nation's benefit only. To prove to Israel that this was their Messiah. And did they accept it? No. But the Pharisees went out and counseled together against him, so as they might destroy him. You know what the word destroy means? Murder him. They wanted to murder him. This is the same Israel today. Israel, if Jesus was to come among their midst today, they'd do the same thing that they did before. Because they still don't want him. They still don't want him. They want to run their own affairs. When Jesus came to them, they says, we don't want him. He will destroy our religion. He was a fulfillment of the religion, people. He will take the reins of our kingdom, our politics. He will become our master politician. We don't want him. Let's kill him. Let's murder him. Thou shalt not, what does the law say?
Kill.
Thou shalt not kill. What about murder? Thou shalt not murder. The first religious persecution that was ever in the Bible was when Cain killed Abel. Abel was no threat to Cain at all. He was no threat. Cain was the heir. He was supposed to be the patriarch after Adam died. Did you know that? Cain was supposed to be the heir, but he wouldn't follow the ways of God. He was going his own way. He had his own religion. He was a farmer, and he would go out and farm, and he would bring his grain and all kinds of things, and he would offer that to the Lord. Well, when Adam sinned, the ground became what? Cursed. So he was offering a cursed offering from a cursed ground. What is the offering supposed to typify? An innocent paying for the guilt of the guilty. How could the grain do that? Now, there were grain offerings and all this in the Old Testament, okay? But that was the first religious. Cain typified Israel that was to come. Did you know? He was a type of what was going to happen to Jesus. Verse number 15, but Jesus, aware of this, withdrew from there, and many followed him, and he healed them all. Why did he heal them? To prove that these were his messianic credentials. Number 16, and he warned them not to make him known, in order that what is spoken by Isaiah the prophet might be fulfilled, saying, number 18 now. Doris, are you over there?
Behold my servant whom I have chosen, my beloved, in whom my soul is well pleased. I will put my spirit upon him, and he shall show judgment to the Gentiles.
All right, he shall show justice. He shall show mercy to the Gentiles. Guess what happened? You know that even back in Noah's day, that God prophesied to Noah that he would use the Gentiles in the church age, that the Gentiles would become the church. The church would be a Gentile church. He would use Japheth to spread the gospel. Back in Noah's day, he told them that. We were teaching that when we did the book of Genesis. And also, in the earlier classes today, back in Isaiah, it says that I will say this before it shall happen. This is prophecy. Jesus looked upon from the Mount of Olives, looked over to Jerusalem, and he said, what? Oh, Jerusalem, how many times I would have gathered you as a mother hen would her baby chickens, but what? You will not, you would not come. He shall proclaim justice to the Gentiles, and he will not quarrel nor cry out. Last part of verse number 19, nor will anyone hear his voice in the streets. Verse number 20, this is a beautiful, beautiful saying. You might miss this. Has anyone, over there, Joanne, you have the Living Bible, don't you?
Yes.
Would you tell me what it says there in verse number 22? No, not 22. 20.
He will not crush those who are weak or quench the smallest hope until he brings full justice with his final victory, and his name will be the hope of all the world.
All right. Now, how many of you ever had little toys? Did your mom or daddy ever make little toys for you? Ever make toys? And sometimes those toys were precious too. Anybody's daddy or mom ever make the toy for you? Dakota, you better cut your hand up. I make a lot of toys for her. when she was little. All kinds of little toy wagons, toy whistles, all kinds of stuff. This is talking about a toy whistle here. I remember my grandpa making a toy whistle for me out of bamboo. Did you ever get any of those made, Doris, that would have a bamboo whistle? We used to have bamboo, and they'd cut and make bamboo whistles and stuff like that. And I would keep a lot of these things. You know, they were very precious to me. And he said, and a battered and a broken little flute, a little toy flute, he will not break off and throw it away. You know what? The Gentiles are like broken things. The Jews looked upon the Gentiles as dogs. Remember that Gentile girl that came to Jesus, and he said, I've come to the lost house of Israel. And she said, even at the feast they throw the fling, is what it was called, that which was no good, a tainted piece of meat or something. They would fling it across the room, and she said, they throw the fling to the puppies, and the puppies eat them. And Jesus looked upon her, and he said, I haven't seen such faith in Israel. And she was a Gentile. She said, throw me a fling, throw me something, just throw me some leftovers, Jesus. I'm a puppy. I'm a dog. I'm one of those Gentile dogs. He won't throw away a precious little toy. He will not break it off. And a smoldering wick he will not put out. And all of the... I'll turn this old antique machine over. And every Jewish household had lamps in it. And these lamps, the potters would make them out of pottery, clay, and they were like this, and there was a little hole up here like this, and they would fill it with olive oil, and there would be a wick down in here, and when the wick got bad, when the wick was considered worthless, they would take it out and throw it away. I don't care how bad you are. I don't care how much of a sinner you are. I don't care how a low-grade, downright person that you've been brought up to. You may have, the rest of your family may be in prison someplace. They may be purse snatchers. They may be horrible characters. And here you are, left in the world, with nothing but parents that were thugs in the world. My father was a very good-looking man. My mother thought she had a crown of a princess when she married him. And he was wilder than all get out. He got married the first time. You know how he made his living? Snatching purses. He got married when he was 14 years old. He was snatching purses, women's purses, robbing stores. Couldn't hardly get a job. He went into the war. He started warring over there. He was Patton's driver. He was made a good warrior. Still wild. Came home, robbed, stole cars, right and left. One time, Sherman Phillips told me, Marilyn, you remember when Sherman told me his story. He came out there. He used to come up to Sherman's. He had a car lot out there in Lamont, California. He'd drive a car up to Sherman out there, and they called my dad Junior. And Sherman would say, Junior, what do you got there? He said, I got a good car, man. But you have it real cheap. He said, you got a pink slip? He said, what's that? He went out there one time, and he'd gone out to Arvin, and he stole the mayor of Arvin's car. It was a beautiful brown and black Crown Victoria Ford. He went out there. If he walked down the street, they said, I talked to his friends. He said, just walk down the street looking in the car, see if there was keys in it. If there was keys in it, he was gone. He'd go in and take off. He took off with that car out of Arvin. He drove it over there to Lamont, to Sherman Phillips' car lot over there. And he drove up there and he said, Sherman, he said, I got a good car, a good deal for you today. And he said, you got a pink slip. Again, he said, what's that? He said, look at that car. Sherman goes out there and walks around that car and he said, well, Junior, he said, I'll tell you this. He said, I know who owns this car. He said, but Junior looked at him. You know, he said, you do? Yeah. It's the mayor of Arvin. That's the mayor of Arvin's car. He said, I'll tell you what, Sherman. He said, I'll make you a real good deal of that. He said, I'll just walk off and leave it right here. And if your friend wants it, he can just come and get it. And he just walked off a foot and left that car right there. Talked to another one of my dad's friends. He said he could go and steal a car down here on Chester Avenue, take it out here in the hills, and he could run it out there and just roll it, and he'd steal the tires off of it. When I was just past 2 years old, he got killed robbing a liquor store in Long Beach, California. That's what I have for a father. I loved him. He was worthless. My mother got married to another man, Dale Otto Remley. You look him up and go on Google and look up him. He was a world-class criminal. All the time cheating people. That's what raised me. That's what raised me. You look at him, it'll say famous scoundrels. Tell you all this shenanigans he pulled. And I was there when he pulled a lot of them. I know shenanigans that they don't even have on Google. Brother Brett wanted me to write a book about this. That's real good. I could have grown up to be his girlfriend was Betty Davis. You know the Lucas star? He went down there one time and talked Betty Davis out of this beautiful dark black, well, it was blue. It was so dark blue that it was almost black. I remember that's the first car I couldn't get into because it didn't have any running boards on it. He took us out at the park out there, Hart Park, and I had to get somebody to help me get in the car. We got back home, he made a little dent in the fender on that thing. Well, anyway, he had taken off with her car. And just a couple of days later, her bodyguards show up at our house to get the car back. So what do you want that Betty Davis's car? That's the kind of thing that can take place. Am I responsible for that? No. Are these Gentiles responsible for what raised them? If your mom and dad are alcoholics, if they're thieves, or Bonnie and Clyde, are you responsible for that? No. No, you're not responsible. Who are you responsible for? You. That's right. You're either going to do something with your life or you're going to throw it away. When you go to court, you have to tell the truth. You swear to tell the truth. We got lawyers down there at 1415 Truxton Avenue right now. All they do is figure out how to lie for their clients. On Wednesday night, we have a guy in here, Brother Bill. Brother Bill's from England. Over there, the lawyers can't lie in England. Do you know that? They're a civilized country. The lawyers over there, if you've got a guilty client, you can't say that he's innocent. And if he confesses to you, you can't lie for him. Boy, we ought to get the Queen of England over here so they can swear allegiance to her. Or else have them swear allegiance to the President of the United States or somebody. They're not going to lie. Lies don't walk, people. Lies will get you into hell. That's where lies will get you. And there was brought to him a demon-possessed man who was blind and dumb, and he healed him, so that the dumb man spake, and he also saw. And all the multitudes were amazed, and kept on saying, this cannot be the Son of David, can he? But when the Pharisees heard it, they said, this man cast out demons by the king of all demons, the ruler of the demons. And knowing their thoughts, he said to them, any kingdom divided against itself is laid waste, and any city or house divided against itself shall not stand. And if Satan is cast out Satan, he is divided against himself, how then shall his kingdom stand? He said, you people don't even make common sense. He said, why don't you just say you don't want me, and you want to murder me? And you know that I'm the king of Israel and the son of David, and you know who I am. Why don't you just say that? Why don't you just have one of your hitmen murder me? And if I by Beelzebub cast out demons, by whom do your sons cast them out? Consequently, they shall be your judges. But if I cast out demons by the Spirit of God, then the kingdom of God has come upon you. The kingdom of God has come upon you. Or how can you enter into a strong man's house to carry off his property unless he first binds the strong man, and then he will plunder his house? He who is not with me is against me. He who does not gather with me scattered. Therefore I say to you, any sin and blasphemy shall be forgiven men, but blasphemy against the Spirit shall not be forgiven. Whosoever shall speak a word against the Son of Man, it shall be forgiven him. But whosoever shall speak against the Holy Spirit, it shall not be forgiven him, either in this age or in the age to come. Either make the tree good, it has good fruit, or make it a tree rotten, and it has rotten fruit, for the tree is known by its fruit. You are a brood of snakes. You are children of the devil. You are children of the devil, and you, being evil, speak what is good. For the mouth speaks out what fills the heart. The good man out of his good treasure brings forth what is good, and the evil man out of the evil treasure brings what is evil. And I say to you that every one useless, careless word that men shall speak, they shall render account for it in the day of judgment. For by your words you shall be justified, and by your words you shall be condemned. Let his blood be upon us and our children. Let his blood be upon us and our children. I'm reminded of something that, remember I told you about Jacob Vouza? How many of you remember? Well, you met Jacob Vouza, Sister Andino, didn't you? Down at CMBI. He was down there for a long time. He was the most decorated war hero in World War II. When he was a chief of scouts, you remember he was stabbed 8 times with a samurai sword and bayonets, and they left him for dead. And they had to give him 16 pints of blood, and he was back to work being a scout in one day, 15 days. He was back working again. Sewed up and out there on the field being a scout for the Marines in the Solomon Islands. They asked him, his people, one time, what's the most precious thing that we brought over here? Was it knives? Was it stoves? Was it pots? Was it medicine? What was the greatest gift that the Americans brought here and the Europeans brought to the Solomon Islands? He said when the white people came to the Solomon Islands, he said, we were cannibals. We didn't have any of these things. We were living in kind of like the Stone Age. But he said, none of your things meant very much to us. But you brought Bibles with us, and your missionaries told us about Jesus. Jesus is the most precious thing that you ever brought to the Solomon Islands. All the rest of it we could do with that. And they wouldn't lie. When the Japanese would capture them, they wouldn't speak because they would not lie. They would not tell them. They said, do you know where they are? And they wouldn't speak. Because if they told them no, they would be lying. They wouldn't speak. They just were so innocent as little children. When you become saved, your life changes, doesn't it? They had been liars, they had been cannibals, they had been all these things before. One time they went out there and they would rescue airmen that were falling to the ocean out there. They'd go out there with their canoes and pick them up. One time they saw this Zero. Zero was a Japanese pilot, and he hit the ground out there, and the pilot got out. So a bunch of Jacob Vouza and his friends went around there on the beach where this Japanese pilot was going to come in, and they didn't want to shoot him because there was some Japanese not too far from there, so they were going to cut him and kill him. One time Jacob Vouza cut a man's head off with a machete, a Japanese soldier. They had captured him. Well, he turned around, and turned on him, and cut his head off. This man, they were going to kill him. When the Japanese soldier got to the shore, He held up his hands like this. He said, please, please let me pray. Let me pray, please. In English, he said, let me pray. Well, they knew English. So they looked at each other and he says, let him pray. So he got down on his knees and he prayed that Jesus would let these people know that he was a Christian and that he wouldn't be killed, that he'd see his family again one of these days. He said, please let them know that I'm a Christian. When he got through praying, he stood up and he said, all right, I'm ready to die. He said, I know you'll kill me. And Jacob Vouza looked at him and he says, are you a Christian? Do you know Jesus? He said, yeah. He said, we can't kill you. He said, we're going to arrest you and we're going to take you as prisoner. They didn't kill him. That's real. That really happened. Thank you for your attention to this. I hope you enjoyed God's Word. We'll go into the Gospel of Matthew a little bit more. Brother David, it's yours.
Yes.
Go out and do something eternal. If you don't know the Lord today, know Him before you leave.
Okay, on our prayer list today, Donita would like to pray for her friend.